Hi, and welcome to the Momversation Club. I'm Claire Strong.
And I'm Christina Streckmeyer.
We're two mums just like you, navigating the nitty-grittiness of motherhood and taking you along with us as we talk about the topics that no one else wants to talk about.
Today, we are so excited to be joined by a special guest, Lydia Senn. Lydia is a content creator whose YouTube channel, The Real Lydia Senn, helps thousands of people save time and money while living a simplified and full life. Welcome, Lydia.
Hi, thank you for having me.
We are so happy that you're on. Like I mentioned before we started the podcast recording, I am fangirling a little bit because I have, through the course of my motherhood journey, been watching Lydia do her thing, and I'm so excited to bring her to our audience and give some really good resources and conversation. So for those who aren't familiar with Lydia, I'll let her tell her side of the story, but introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about you and the work that you do.
Sure. So as you said, I'm Lydia Senn, and I always start my videos off with, I talk about frugal and simple living. We're a debt-free family of 6. So I have 4 kids. I've been married to my husband almost 20 years, which just, whoa.
Congrats.
Over half my life at this point, because I am,
Wow.
a baby. Just kidding. I to teach people in a grace-filled way, like how to simplify their schedules, how to simplify their spending, and enjoy life in a way that's a little bit more manageable.
Well, unlike Christina, I'm kind of fairly new to your content, and I think it's great and it's much needed, especially for women and mums. I think it's very important that we are able to educate ourselves financially and feel empowered. But I want to know, because I'm not familiar totally with your backstory. So this is great. I'm learning as we go here. And could you share with us why you wanted to start making this content? What happened in your life for you to want to go down this journey, Lydia?
Well, when I first started making this content, it was over a decade ago. I had a tiny little baby. We had just moved from Atlanta to this small town, and we were in so much debt. And at the time, I couldn't find anyone in debt talking about how they were getting out of it. I heard stories from people who talked about saving money who were never in debt. I heard stories from people who had paid off all of their debts, but no one who was in the thick of raising small children while trying the hardest that they could to cut every penny and save everything they could and learn all the financial stuff that you didn't learn growing up. And so I thought, well, if I feel this lonely, surely there's some other mom out there in her kitchen clipping coupons, trying to stretch out a rotisserie chicken who can relate to this.
Absolutely. And I love that you decided not, a lot of people, when they go to make something and create content, they'll go, oh, well, no one's done that, so there's not an audience for it. And I love that you saw this situation where there was a lack of education, because not all of us, I speak for me, but not all of us grow up knowing about money, knowing those conversations aren't happening. There are probably a lot more than you think that relate to your content. Share a little bit about, I know it's kind of off script, but share a little bit about the feedback you've gotten since you started this channel. What's something that people really relate to when it comes to that content?
Well, I think it's not just the financial content. It's also when I just talk about my home or what's going on in our day. It's like, open the door, come in, have a cup of coffee. My kitchen's a little messy because I just cooked. And so I think that it's nice to see yourself kind of reflected back. And I know that I don't represent all women by any means, but I know that there's someone out there who maybe has struggled to put her financial pieces together, and her kitchen's a little messy, and she struggles to balance motherhood. And it's not a curated picture.
Yeah, I mean, I love that. And that's kind of a similar approach that we take here with the Momversation Club. We want it to be raw and real and relatable and feel like we're meeting mums, where they're at. I would love to talk to you about, and we'll get into, practical budgeting tips and how to get out of debt tips, but just the mental and emotional impact that debt in particular can have on mums. Can you speak a bit about that, Lydia?
Sure. I likened it to carrying around a backpack full of bricks. And sometimes you
Mm.
don't know, it's not heavy at first. You take out a student loan, everybody takes out student loans. Well, then you've graduated and you're having rent for the first time, maybe, and groceries are more than you expected, so you put them on a credit card. And then over time, that backpack is more than you can manage. But we have so much shame when it comes to finances. We have this idea that
Mm-hmm.
it's just a skill you're supposed to be born with. You're just supposed to know what to do. And if you ask questions, you feel foolish. And we're not alone. A lot of people have debt. A lot of people take out student loans. A lot of people can't afford groceries or were never taught to budget. And so just having someone say, okay, you're not dumb because you got into debt. You're not foolish because you don't know the answers. Saving money and spending money is a skill that you have to learn.
I think as well, moms in particular can be in a very vulnerable position because most of the time, a lot of the child care, the child rearing, the house duties do still fall to us. So in my case, for example, I've taken a few career breaks to look after my children, and it's been at my financial detriment because then I've given all the power to my partner, and I felt like I wasn't in control. And with my ex-husband, he wasn't great with money. And that led us into, I mean, I'll be honest about my situation. We had our home repossessed. We had like major financial stresses. I could barely put food on my kids' table. I had to make decisions about whether I ate or they ate. And so, I think it's so important that for women, for mothers, and for those women who may not be in a position of earning money for a period of their life, that they still feel empowered. So let's talk to that. So if we have moms listening here who may be, having to take a step back from their career, they may have a reduced income. How can they still feel empowered, even though they may not be the main breadwinner for a period of their lives?
Right. The unpaid labor of women is invaluable. And I know I have been in social situations where people have asked, what do you do? Because that's the first thing we ask when we meet people, right? What do you do? And for
Yeah.
a long time, it was like tuck my shoulders around my ears and whisper, well, I stay home. Almost like I wasn't contributing, which we know that motherhood is invaluable and the deposits we put in our children
Of
daily are
course.
invaluable. But also, if you look at
Mm-hmm.
it from the aspect of a lot of times, even if moms aren't working outside the home, the burden of making sure the bills are paid on time, making sure the groceries are purchased, making sure that the children's programs are paid for, that the bulk of the money management often falls on us. And so
Mm-hmm.
having a basic financial plan, um, and anything that we can do to like shorten the gap between our income and what goes out, we kind of have to flip that around to being like, that is how we earn money. The things that we do to manage our money and to make sure that we're using it as wisely as we can, that's money returned to us.
And I love that you mentioned that women are kind of having that power of being the purchasers. I know my background, I used to be in advertising, and a lot of the companies would specifically target their advertising to women because even if the women may not be, traditionally in a workforce, they're still working. But if they're, not bringing home a paycheck, they still very much are making those decisions. The husband usually isn't, not always, but usually isn't the one deciding what detergent to buy or what school supplies are the right school supplies or any of that stuff. It
Mm-hmm.
falls on moms, and in that space also a double-edged sword because I feel like there's a lot of shame, like you had mentioned earlier,
Yeah.
on women around that financial strain. We feel like we've gotten ourselves into something as if it's something where we're like, do not touch that button, and we go boop. Like it kind of, like you said, it happens over time. Where do you think that like shame comes from? And how do you handle that with your content?
I think, and I'm sure that both of you have experienced this, the world is really unfair to women. We have really
Oh
high
yeah. Yeah.
expectations of our behavior, the way we parent, the way we work. I mean, you've probably seen that meme that you're expected to parent like you don't have a job and work like you're not a parent. And as
Yeah,
someone who,
it's impossible.
impossible, exactly.
We have the mother load of all the things we have to think of underneath our motherhood of like who's grown out of their shoes and who's needs to go to a doctor's appointment. But we also have this financial responsibility, even if we aren't bringing home a
Exactly.
paycheck.
If we're not
Yeah.
doing it perfectly, if we're not, you know, spending X amount on our groceries and making sure that our light bill is at this and driving the most economic car. And it's not something that a normal person can reasonably balance all of the time. Kind of goes back to that we ask questions and we're made to feel stupid.
I was just going to, ask for you to talk to us about budgeting, because that really is the bedrock of any other financial kind of, gains or improvements you're going to make. Because you can't save, you can't have an emergency fund if you don't know what your budget is. So if, there are mums listening to this that either haven't got a budget, they don't know how to even start budgeting, what are some simple steps that you can talk us through where we can actually get a grasp on what we're spending each month?
So the first thing I always recommend is to take a month and just track your spending. Even if you don't change a single spending habit, just grab your phone, grab the notes app in your phone, and every time you spend money, just write it down. Or there's so many spreadsheet options. I actually have a free spreadsheet. And just at the end of the day, take a couple minutes and track what you've spent so that at the end of the month, you can see where your money is going. And then when I'm teaching people to budget, I really only break it down into a few categories. I don't think you have to have a line item for everything. That gets super overwhelming. And so I just do bills, food, housing, and other.
Other. I love that.
Shoes, that's fees for field trips. It's like the cupcakes you're taking into school. I guess that would be under grocery, but you can kind of categorize anything you want under those four categories. And then you just start with what you have, and you take out your fixed expenses. So your mortgage or your rent, your insurance, your regular rotating bills. And then you do your groceries, and then you just it's like an inverted pyramid from there.
I love that. I think so much of the time we have these like expenses that creep up on us because we aren't watching that. We are kind of just sliding our card and realizing that $3, $5, $8 item over time and with higher quantities, it turns into a much larger percentage of our budget. One thing I was not taught financial literacy so much as kind of my great grandfather took me aside and was like, this is how not to get bills lost. And I know in that same vein, he recommended grabbing each bill and getting a piece of paper and literally writing down PG&E this much, rent this much, and having everything in one spot. And it's that same thing of like, you don't know how something's going unless you can see it. You have to be able to tangibly see what you're spending and where things need to go.
Exactly. Sometimes you just need a black and white picture of where your money went, because how many times have we gotten to the end of the month and we're like, oh, where did all of my money go? And if you're just taking a couple weeks to track, it'll also, if you're tracking, it's self-accountability. And sometimes you're like, well, maybe I don't need Starbucks today if I have to put it in my phone.
Yeah, I hate confronting my latte habit. I really do. I wish that didn't count.
I don't want to know.
Oh my God. So can I ask you a little bit about savings as well, Lydia? Because we've mentioned a bit about budgeting, but, for women, for mums, I just feel that, we can be sometimes in a vulnerable situation, and some of us are parenting on our own. And so like what ideally, even if we're not earning a great deal of money and we are on a pretty strict budget, talk to us about saving and how we can do that even on a budget, and what we should be saving for. For example, emergency savings funds. Talk to us about that too and why it's important.
So an emergency fund is, I always think about it this way, that my future does not have any money, and any money that she has is money I'm sending to her. So that emergency fund is like a little life raft for her. And it can be for anything. It can be for an actual emergency, or it can be I need as a mom to have the autonomy to be able to spend a little money on myself however I want without having to ask anyone for permission. And so sometimes setting that
Mm.
money aside is for an emergency, or it's just for whatever you want it to be. But start small. We were talking about spending, and when we mindlessly spend, it adds up. $10,000 a year is just $27 and change a day. And so we have a tendency to mindlessly spend sometimes, and those things add up. Now, I think it is perfectly good and perfectly fine to treat ourselves. If grabbing a latte on the school run is what made that day the difference between a horrible day and a great day, then that's what you need to do.
Great,
She
thank God.
speaks our language.
You don't have to.
I don't need to give that up. It does make my day. Here's the thing, I joke about it with my friend, but it legit makes my day. It's the difference between me being able to get through the day and not. So thank you, Lydia. I can still have my
For
lattes.
me,
Yes.
crispy Diet Coke from McDonald's on Wednesdays. I don't know what that's my busiest day, and I don't know what it is. I see
Yeah.
the bubbles, and I'm like, "Thank you, Lord. I am once again one of your favorites." Um, and so
Oh my
Oh my
we need
goodness.
gosh.
to have money for
I
joy, you know.
Yes, yes. Money
yes.
for you do
Joy
that.
should be in the
Joy
budget.
should be in the
Yes, yes.
budget.
It should be, when we're budgeting other, and then another category should be joy. What I'm really, really interested in asking you, Lydia. You said that you're a family of 6, but you're out of debt. How did you become debt free? What steps did you take in order to achieve debt free status?
Okay, so we had $36,000 in debt, and it was the remainder of some student loans, credit card, and then I was
Mm.
in a car wreck when I was pregnant with my oldest. And so we
Oh
had
God.
just a ton of medical debt because of that. And so we took a new job. I say we, my husband took a new job right after our son was born, and we moved states. And he was making about $38,000 a year. So our debt to income ratio was slim.
Mm,
But we knew we had to do something, or we were just going to be there forever. And I know that
mm,
$30,000 doesn't sound like a ton of money in today's context, but in 2014, or I guess it'd be 2012, it felt like a lot. And so
yeah.
we had never budgeted. We did not know a lot about personal finance, but we decided we have interest rates that are too high. Let's go after that first. And the first thing that I actually did was call our credit card company and say, "Hey, we've always made our payments on time. Can you lower our interest rate?" And it worked. And I was like, "Wait, what? You can ask things and
Oh,
people will give them to you? What is this magic?" And so
that's amazing.
that's where I tell
Wow.
people to start all the time. Like, have you called and see? I mean, and sometimes it can just be like 1 or 2 points, but it's enough to just give you a little bit of breathing room.
Well, can I just mention, you'll be proud of me, Lydia. Just yesterday, I noticed on my bank statement that I'd been charged 3 overdraft free fees. And I was like, this is, BS. That adds up. It's $35 a pop times 3. And I called the bank and I said, this is kind of unacceptable. I have 3 overdraft charges here. Can you help me? And they didn't refund all of them, but I think they refunded 2. So again, I asked. I never would have thought to have asked before, and I don't know what came over me. Maybe it's because I knew we were interviewing you today, and I felt like the pressure was on. I had Lydia in my ear. But you're right. Sometimes if you ask, you might be surprised. You might get something out of it. So yeah, okay. So that's a great point to not be too scared to ask for things.
And to ask
That
nicely, people,
Yeah.
I imagine the customer service agents on the other side, they're people, they understand, they deal with people all day long. And if you
Mm,
come to them with a little bit of honey rather than being like kind of a Karen,
yeah.
they're more likely to understand your situation and see ways that they can help because sometimes they have tools that we don't know
exactly.
about.
And I have a script on my blog that I can share with you if you'd like to share it with your people. And it's just
Yes.
step.
Yes,
I say,
definitely.
but I do emphasize always be kind to the person that you're talking to. Even if they can't help you,
Yes.
that's for your soul. That's for you. You be a good
Yeah.
person. But
That's great
the
advice.
second thing that we focused on was our grocery budget. And I was like,
Mm.
well, what if we went meatless? Like, what if we adopted a plant based diet a few days a week?
Mm-hmm.
And so that was the second thing that I focused on. I also, we did pretty bare bones. And if I could go back, I don't know that I would change anything because my children were so little, but if my children were the ages they were now, it would probably take us longer because I wouldn't want to be so strict about things. But
Mm.
I was pregnant and I had a toddler and I was pulling my baby in a wagon to the library because I was like, we're not spending money today. Let's go see what free trouble we can get into. But also just really focusing on keeping our daily expenses as low as we possibly could.
I think you mentioned groceries. All moms, today can say, certainly I can speak to this, that is aside from the mortgage, is the single biggest
Mm-hmm.
expense. I mean, I feel like no matter how hard I try, I cannot get that money down. That number every week it just can't come down for whatever reason for me right now. And I'm sure a lot of mums would empathize with this. What like practical tips can you give us for specifically grocery shopping, Lydia, that's going to maybe help us just save some money, because you feel a little hopeless when you go to the checkout and it's like, oh my god, like that amount a few years ago I could that would have been 2 weeks shopping, but I guess it is what it is.
Oh, I know. And I made the mistake of going back into my grocery app and seeing what something had cost like 3 years ago. And that was one of the most
Yeah.
depressing experiences of my life. But I just want to say before I give this tip, I want to acknowledge that as a work from home mom, I probably have time that other moms who don't work outside of the home have. And so anytime I offer
Mm.
any tips, I want to give that caveat of we all have different lives, different energy levels, different children. And so no piece of advice is going
Hmm.
to work for everyone. And so if something doesn't work for you, throw it out and don't let it make you feel bad. But one of the things that has helped me is when I'm in the store looking at particularly snacks and prepackaged things or even frozen items, could I make that? Could I make that and it be cheaper? Because with
Mm.
4 kids, the
Mm.
bulk of my groceries were fruit, like those berries, and
Yeah.
snacks. Well,
Yes,
the
I hear
berries
you.
I will spend the money on. The snacks, let's see if I can make them. And so it was doing things like experimenting with the little bites. My daughter is obsessed with those tiny little muffins that come in like 4 muffins in a bag. You know what I'm talking about? And they're like eight.
Yeah.
Oh, totally. Yes.
I
Yes.
can buy pancake mix for $1.13 a box and add in whatever I want, and it's a mini muffin, and that's her favorite snack. Or instead of buying a box of Uncrustables, I can take 10 minutes, make my own, pop them in the freezer. So for me, it really was, well, what can I make? And then that way I can also
Mm.
control what's in it, and I know exactly what I'm getting.
Mm. I love that advice. And you talked about berries, and I'm like, bane of my existence. I have a toddler, and I don't know what it is about toddlers and like young children under 5, but they go through berries like nobody's business. I am not berry rich. We have to keep
Mm-hmm.
this down.
Absolutely. Yeah, they are. Fruits are very expensive.
It's so
Strawberries, raspberries.
expensive.
Oh my god.
I bought some blackberries at Aldi, and I think within 15 minutes of us being home, the container was empty because, like, as I was washing them and putting them, the
Oh
kids were
yeah.
like, "Oh my gosh!"
It's crazy. Well, you mentioned earlier, and this is actually something I've been doing because, again, I'm a listener, like keeping it real. But you mentioned meatless Mondays and like having a couple days a week where you have kind of a plan for your meals. I recently was watching something you had posted. I think it might have been a few weeks ago, where each day kind of had a
Yeah.
theme. And I would love for you to share that with our audience because I think as a mom, the bane of my existence is what's for dinner. And I feel like so much of my grocery spend happens because I don't have a plan going in, and I grab a bunch of food that I think would probably work together, and then it goes bad in my fridge. And then it's wasteful because I know how much money that was spending. But if I had a plan like you do, maybe that wouldn't
Well,
happen.
the most expensive food we can buy is the food that we throw away. And I am like the number one, I'm the worst at that. I feel like for years I had the ceremonial bag salad. You know what I'm talking about? You buy anyway.
Yes. Oh
And so
God.
one of the things that we started doing was just with our schedule, with our life, I have to meal plan, but we
Mm.
do sheet pan Monday, we do Taco Tuesday, then Wednesday it's always some sort of hot sandwich that comes out of the crock pot. Thursday is also a crock pot meal, and then Friday is pizza. And then Sunday night we do breakfast, and then I joke that Saturday is whatever my husband cooks. Like I don't even think about that. That's his problem.
I love that. It's like the grill or like
Yeah.
something where he figures it out and we're off the
And I
clock.
do keep some emergency freezer stash. Some of them are things that I made, but some of them are things I picked up at Trader Joe's. And that's just in there because that's going to be cheaper than going through the drive through. But just knowing, okay, on Monday it's a sheet pan. What can I make? Okay, roasted vegetables and some chicken sausage. Tuesday is tacos. You can make anything into a taco. That's easy. Wednesday, hot sandwiches, meatball subs. Sometimes I'll just get cold cuts and make like a panini. And then if I just have a regular rotation, I know what to expect because routines make kids feel safe. They also make moms feel safe. We know what the next step is.
Because it's not just the financial implications. If you know what you're doing as a mum and you have this plan, all the meals scheduled for the week, it's a load off
Yeah.
us too, because otherwise, you're tired, you're scrambling to think what to cook tonight, you're looking your fridge, you're like, I don't know what the hell I've got left to even make into a meal. And so I get you. I need to actually practice what I preach in that area because I don't do a meal plan. Christina, you're better at this than I am. But I should do a weekly meal plan because just the stress in itself that would diminish is worth it, even without the financial benefits
And if
too.
Well, and I'll be honest with you. Oh,
if
go
you
ahead,
just
Lydia.
start one day a week, just have like, on Monday
Okay.
I'm gonna saute some chicken and we're gonna buy a bag of Caesar salad mix, and on Mondays we're gonna have salad Monday. And just start one day a
Mm,
week and then add from there.
I love that. I was just going to tell you, Claire, it may
yeah.
seem like I have it together with meal plans, but the real reality is that
Mm,
happens like once a month where I have a
okay.
good week. Because
Okay.
what happens to me is I get kind of paralyzed by the decision
Yes,
making.
I do
I
too.
will think, okay, I have to make dinner, I have to meal plan. Let me type in like easy meals for kids into the Google or to the Pinterest, and a million recipes come at me. And it feels like, oh my gosh, how can I even decide? I have to go through each recipe and figure out, and then it'll be an ingredient I know my kid won't eat. And it gets really crazy. And so I love this idea because it gives you kind of some borders of like, okay,
Mm,
a sheet pan meal. Well, then I can search like sheet pan meals that are easy and look at the pictures because sheet pan meals are very visual and see what I want to eat with my family and maybe even grab the groceries for this sheet pan meal and the next and have that prepped. I mean, I'm already thinking in my little head of how much that idea will help me just get over that paralysis of the decision making of what
yeah.
do we have for dinner.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. Can I just ask you, Lydia, are there any apps that you recommend for us? Any of these, budgeting apps or, tracking apps? I know I use Rocket. I'm still not kind of absolutely down with how that works, but that's one of them. But is there any that you like? I mean, what would you recommend
It's
to
not an
us?
app, but it is a particular spreadsheet, and it's called the Budget by Pay Period spreadsheet, and it's made by a lady named Carly. Do y'all know Carly? She's the debt-free mom on Instagram.
Mm.
Oh,
And
Yes.
okay.
it's a $9 spreadsheet. She has videos that show you how to use it, how to break it down. It's super easy to follow. And I have my own like free budget by paycheck spreadsheet. It's not as good as hers. Hers is really good. And so
We love keeping it real. I love that.
Not as good as
And
this.
you get Google Sheets on your phone, and you could just plug it in. You pay for it one time ever, and then you just update it every pay period, and it's just really easy to follow.
Oh, I love that. Well, we hit groceries, we hit call your people, and, see if you can finagle some sort of better situation for yourself. As we're nearing the end of our conversation, what are some other things that come to mind that are things that have helped you and your family like get to a better spot financially?
Well, one of the things was, and this isn't, again, going to work for everyone, but I did look for work from home opportunities, and I became a virtual assistant. And I truly believe that this is something that a lot of moms could do. You don't need education. You don't need to buy a course. There's really nothing that you have to do. You can go on Pinterest, you can go on YouTube and look up how to become a virtual assistant. And a lot of the skills that you already have will transfer. And so for me, I used to be a news reporter. I was like, okay, I used to cover the news. I'm a fast writer. I'm a good fact checker. I know how to do like the back end of websites because I was a new media reporter. How can I translate that into a marketable skill? And so people paid me to manage their websites for them. And I still do that. And I've transitioned that into marketing. And so I'll write marketing scripts for them. But teachers can do this with online tutoring. Nurses can do this through, transcription work. There's so many opportunities out there.
So finding like that extra source of income from something you already maybe have a skill set in doing, other work from home type things to kind of bring in a little bit more money for the household.
You can do like when your kids are napping or early in the morning, late at night.
Yes.
But also, like I said earlier, anything that we can do to shorten that gap between what is coming in and what is going out, whether that is, cutting out something that we're not using or deciding that we're not going to go to Target anymore or focusing on meal planning, that's like giving money back to yourself.
I love that. And Lydia, where can we find you? I mean, if we have moms listening to this, that are like, oh my God, she's great. I want to find out more. Where can people follow you? How can we access all your tutorials and all your tips?
So I'm on YouTube at The Real Lydia Senn. And then I'm also on Instagram as Lydia Senn. If you're looking for more like weird, unhinged, disorganized content. Sometimes I watch the stories back and I'm like, girl, what is happening today?
Oh my God.
I love it. I think everyone should follow you because it feels like I have this mom friend who also gives me a lot of great advice all of the time. Every time we sit down to have coffee or something, you're giving me some good information. And sometimes you post videos and it's just like comfort content, like day in the life, watch me make a crock pot meal. Let's hang out. Love that. And the tips are, like you mentioned earlier, if you're someone who's listening and you struggle with finances, I love Lydia because it's kind of like when you're in exercise class. Have you guys ever been there where they're all maybe doing Pilates and then somebody else over there is advanced and you feel like you're not as advanced as that person? Yeah. And they're like, well, if you struggle, follow this elderly lady named Harriet in the front. She's amended the situation so that you can, do her moves. That's how I feel like her content is. Any place where you need to access her, any entry point, you can get in there and feel like you're getting something that's helpful to you. And you don't have to be this like whiz. You can use a piece of paper and a pen, grab what do you normally say in your videos? Grab a cup of whatever you're drinking. And you can just go ahead and join in.
Right. Start with just one step today. Like I think, and this is with anything. This is with weight loss. This is with starting a business. This is with finances. We want to climb the whole mountain, right? Like it's going to take so long, but it's going to take what it takes and your life will keep moving on regardless. And so just choose the little step in front of you and do one thing today. And then once you feel confident in that one thing, next week, a month from now, we'll add a second step. But we have this saying in my school community, easy plus one. And so we're going to pick the easiest thing in front of us and we're going to add one thing to it at a time. Easy plus one.
And that brings us to the end of another episode of the Momversation Club.
And if you've enjoyed today's show, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave a review.
We really hope that today's episode has helped you to feel more seen and less alone in motherhood. Until next time, bye for now.